Hello everybody, you are watching the normal cut of this video, which means it will include no gameplay testing and it will just be me talking about the build and the concept behind it and my conclusion. If you want to watch the gameplay testing, watch the extended cut, which is also released today, which includes that gameplay testing so you know more about what I'm doing and how to use the build. Thank you. Hello everybody, welcome to what is a build that I thought I would never be featuring on the channel, which is a two-handed flail build. In the most recent update of Battle Brothers, they buffed two-handed flails and made them not bad. Previously, two-handed flails were basically objectively the worst two-handed weapon for late game use because they're low damage coupled with low armor damage and not that high pen meant that you basically didn't ever want to use them compared to other weapons. And their second ability, Thresh, is awful because it's the round swing and it's very hard to use, has low hit chance, and does basically no damage at all. But with Of Flesh and Faith, they buffed two-handed flails. They buffed their damage from 40 to 80 to 45 to 90. They gave hits to the head ignore an additional 20% chance of armor, 10% because of the weapon, and 10% because of Flail Mastery. So now if you actually want to use Flail Mastery, that's something you can do. They also buffed the wooden two-handed flail, not that you care about that unless you're on a cultist run on day 1, and they buffed the Berserker Chain to 50 to 100 damage as opposed to 40 to 100 damage. So the average damage of the Berserker Chain has gone up. I think the Berserker Chain is more of a meme now than before. I think the regular two-handed flail is better, especially when you get some named variants. So let's take a look at the build that I'm thinking of right now. So what is the two-handed flail build compared to? Well, it's obviously compared to other two-handed weapon builds, be that the axe, the two-handed mace, the two-handed hammer, the two-handed sword. And there's a lot of variations within those. There's like the quick hands reach weapons. There's berserk killing frenzy builds. There are stam neutral builds. So I was thinking, like, how am I trying to capitalize on the two-handed flail? Well, also with Of Flesh and Faith came a headhunter buff. Headhunter now, oh, it doesn't say so. Oh, okay, never mind. I think it says so on tooltip is maybe right. Before, Headhunter used to lose its stack if you missed the attack, but now it keeps it. So you proc Headhunter by hitting the head, and then you'll keep the Headhunter stack until you actually hit the head a second time, which is huge because it improves the consistency of Headhunter basically infinitely. Like, you never have to worry about misses ever again, and it makes Headhunter a much more viable perk than it was before. I think Headhunter was already, like, questionably good, but now I think it's just a really good perk for a lot of builds. But I want to try and use it for the two-handed flail because we remember that the two-handed flail ignores 20% more armor on hits to the head. And the two-handed flail can get plus head hit chance on its named variants. So this is a way we can maximize using Headhunter in traits like Brute. So I thought, would I want to use a stam neutral build? A stam neutral build, for those who don't know, is a build that recovers 15 stam at the start of every turn, like every single brother does, but this build never accumulates more than 15 stam per turn. So with Pathfinder, you can walk and spend 3 AP on like every single tile except for Swamp. So barring Swamp, you can move 1, and then you still have your 6 AP to attack with your two-handed weapon. So you can always move once and attack. It means you miss out on perks like Rotate, you miss out on perks like Indom, like Berserk, because you're never going to get more stam to swing twice. You can keep Killing Frenzy. But a lot of the, or like, reach advantage isn't so good because you're only really swinging once. I don't know. There's some other, like, footwork. I guess you can't use footwork. But the two-handed flail suffers, and it can't actually be a stam neutral build. So if I was going to do it, this is what it would look like. But this is a really bad build because what you can do, let's say you have like a hammer, just hypothetically. What you do is you pick the hammer, and then you take quick hands. So you move one, hit. Oh wait, what if you can't hit with your two-handed hammer? Well, you quick switch, and then you have the pull hammer, which is under the same mastery, and thus you can do that, and you can actually have an effective reach of 2 tiles every single turn, or I guess 3 tiles is what it would be. Same thing with the axe, same thing with the mace. Alternatively, you could use pole arms and then just not have a spec on your regular weapon if you have like a minus fat axe on use, or minus fat on use axe. But there's no pole flail. The long flail does not exist. So you can't do this. Like, you could, but it would just be bad. It would be objectively worse than just using the whole point is that you can like hit from 2 tiles away with the reach weapon. So you would never make a stam neutral flail build. So you have to go stam intensive, which just means that you're using more stam than you recover. Like, almost every build in the game is stam intensive. That's not like some weird term. That's just the way I'm calling it. So I've thought of 2 builds for how to make the two-handed flail actually good. So let's look at this first one here. So we start with Colossus to give us more HP. That's just good. You're almost always taking Colossus. Okay. Then you want Flail Spec. Of course we want Flail Spec. And of course we want Headhunter. So those are easy builds right there. Because we're going stam intensive, we're going to want Berserk. We don't want stam neutral. Thus, we want to use Berserk, because we have to go stam intensive. Otherwise, you would just use like a hammer or an axe or a mace. So you have to go Berserk. Going Berserk means you want to go Killing Frenzy. And Killing Frenzy is also really good in this build because you're maximizing the amount of damage you can do. So I think this is good. We're a damage dealing build, so we want to go Fearsome. There are at-length discussions in the Battle Brothers community about why Fearsome is amazing. Shorthand, imagine if every time you hit somebody, or at least 50% of the time you hit somebody, you dropped their melee attack by 10%, their melee defense by 10%. Like, you debuff them. It's like Overwhelm, but with hit chance, and damage, and defense as well. So it's better Overwhelm, right? Isn't that cool? Okay, well that's what's called a morale break, when you go breaking, and then wavering, and then fleeing. That's what happens to you. So this is why Fearsome is good. Awesome. Cool. So then, I'm going to go Pathfinder, because I don't want to go Recover. I still want to be able to move one and attack on every single turn. Even, because if I run out of stam because I'm berserking and frenzying too much, I can still fall back on this, so I want to have Pathfinder. Okay, so Underdog, questionable, good choice. But I'm thinking, head hits. You do a lot of damn damage on the head. Not a lot of things have heavy head armor. So, what if you proc injuries on the head hits? You probably do proc injuries. In fact, I've tested it, and you do proc injuries. Like broken nose or whatever. You'll proc that against Chosen. You can proc that against Orc Warriors, maybe. Anything less than an Orc Warrior, you will certainly injure on a head hit. So, you won't one-shot them, though. So you won't one-shot them, but you'll injure them. So an enemy will be injured. Thus, we want Executioner. Because Executioner, if you head hit them, and then you are guaranteed to head hit them again, and you get plus 20% damage because you broke their nose the first hit, you just fucking smack them. Awesome. You could even go Crippling Strikes. And Crippling Strikes is to make, maybe you get the better injuries, like maybe instead of broken nose, you get crushed windpipe or concussion. Because what you can actually do is kind of almost farm getting severe concussions. Severe concussions, along with broken skull, are the worst injuries in the game. You get minus 50% to all your stats, maybe except for like resolve and hit points. But you can't attack shit, you can't defend against shit. You're totally useless. 50% to everything. So if you can proc broken skull on an enemy, that effectively makes them useless. It doesn't mean you're not going to kill them. I wouldn't necessarily leave them alive, but it does take them out of the fight for the next turn. Additionally, the two-handed flail has a chance to stun, so you could also injure these guys and like stun them for a lot of enemies that are not stun immune. So Crippling Strikes is an arguable choice right here. I think you can take off Crippling Strikes and take Underdog. Underdog, if you like doing that, just why you would want underdog normally. Additionally, you could take dodge. Dodge is not a bad perk. You could take gifted as well. I think those would be the perks I would take. I don't think fortified mind is that great, but you could. So in terms of battle forged or nimble, you could definitely go nimble. That would probably benefit more from like dodge, but maybe not. Nimble is good because it means you can be more stam intensive without having to put more points into stam. You know what I mean? You could also go battle forged. Battle forged, if you have like lots of stam, you have like a double star stam dude or something with brute, then maybe this is your build. If you have a lot of stam, maybe you can wear like light battle forged armor. Some of the new oath takers armor is really good for the stam to armor ratio is very strong, so you could go battle forged, or you can use light armor padding. So I think it's kind of independent which one you do. You could do this and then go brawny, although I feel like it's probably better to go battle forged and then take like a light battle forged and keep crippling strikes, or you can just do nimble that way. So alternatively, the second build idea I have is to drop that last perk. You can still have battle forged and nimble as we said, but you drop crippling strikes and you take adrenaline. Now this, I think, benefits more from nimble because you're going to require a lot more stam to do this, and thus, when you have less armor weighing you down, nimble, you have more stam left. Alternatively, though, if you have like a bajillion stam, just go battle forge, same thing as before, then you'll be fine. But why would I want adrenaline? So you hit somebody with headhunter, and you proc headhunter. So the next hit is going to ultra smack somebody in the head. So what if you just go first next round? If you go first, you basically take somebody and wipe the floor with them, because you're gonna smack them in the head because you have the headhunter proc. So if you hit somebody once and then you hit them again with your adrenaline hit, they've lost almost all their HP if they're not already dead. But you could hit somebody else, and then you can maybe get like a broken skull on them or something like that, which could, or stun them as well. So there's also the other point of a 30% chance to stun, which isn't great. I wouldn't necessarily roll on that, but adrenaline is useful in other situations. Like there's just the normal situations where adrenaline is useful, but when you're guaranteeing like the wrath of God with your headhunter flail hit here, that's even more strong. So that is a different build that I'm thinking. So I'm thinking it's the same build. Either take like adrenaline, or I'm thinking maybe take crippling strikes. Underdog is certainly good. Underdog would probably be the third one. If you don't want to go adrenaline, I think you should maybe go underdog or crippling strikes. You could maybe do that. I don't think dodge is that worth it. Maybe go nimble. But this is the general build idea of what we're looking for right now. So overall, I think the flail build here is certainly worth looking at. Is it as good as like the quick hands reach builds? No, probably no. I would say no, it's not. Is it bad? Also no. I think it's its own thing. And it's quite good against human enemies. It's really good against ancient undead as well because you ignore the shield. So the plus accuracy might actually get you better damage in the long run because you're not having to worry about missing due to shields. The only issue is when you, or one of the big issues is when you don't actually have the good head hit chance, is because this thing does like jack shit against body armor. So you really have to be getting those head hits. So maybe you could Thresh and then try and proc Headhunter that way. But that again doesn't do a whole lot of damage, and Thresh is usually a very bad ability. So if you have a plus head hit chance flail, even if it's not plus armor ignore, plus damage, plus head hit chance makes this build what it is. So if you find one of those in the future, I would say actually consider using it and making this build here. I think it's worth looking at. So thanks to Overhype for making 200 flails actually worth something. I think they should be buffed more, but this is a good starting point to actually start using them. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out. Alright everyone, so what is our conclusion from this video right here? Well, I think there's a few of them, and I just want to start with Headhunter in general. You can see, like, Headhunter is pretty actually baller as its own damage perk. Now, you saw with the Flail here that it kind of makes this build work. Without the head hits, the Flail did absolutely nothing, and it was just a bad weapon. So you need that Headhunter for that. But you also saw with the God Hammer that it almost one-shot a Chosen on the head. And even a normal hammer, if you head hit it, it'll do a whole lot. You'll probably get a lot of injuries if you just replace the Flail with any of these weapons and use Headhunter. Now, could be its own build. Executioner, Crippling Strikes, Headhunter, and you just start proccing head hits on everybody. Yeah, you've dropped Underdog. Maybe you could drop Fearsome for Underdog, or maybe just drop Crippling Strikes in that. And Headhunter could just become a new viable perk for damage dealers overall. But, and specifically with the Flail build, this Flail build is quite viable. Now, do I think it's going to beat Quick Hands reach weapon builds? No, I don't think it will. I think those are still better overall. But I think the two-handed Flail build is actually its own thing and something that you can consider using without feeling like it's just a meme. The regular two-handed Flail, without any of the named modifiers, is kind of ass because it just doesn't have the head hit chance to really do anything. Like, it just does nothing on the body. So if you're looking for a good named two-handed Flail, I think the two stats, well, there's three stats you need. One of them is a plus head hit chance. You need plus head hit chance to consistently proc Headhunter. So if you have a Killer on the Run or a Juggler, either of those work, but you also probably want Brute. So we'll just, wait and see until you get any of those combination of things. Of course, you need melee attackers too, so those backgrounds might not be the best. But onto the other two stats, it's damage and it's armor ignore. So right here we have a regular damage two-handed Flail with near max armor ignore, which is 65 to 110, 0, 57. We don't care about the armor damage that much. So 0 to 57. This is basically a max roll Flail with the normal ignore armor damage. This is 77 to 133, 0 to 53. So 0 to 53 ignore, or 0 to 57 ignore. But this just does more hit point damage, like raw. So I think it's a little bit better on body hits, is what I'm guessing. But I don't quite know. So I think either one of those two stats is what you need to do, because you need to ignore armor to get those injuries and to kind of be effective on your head hits. And of course, the head hit chance, I think, is the most important stat of all of them. So in conclusion, I would definitely use this build. I think it's fun. I think it's also pretty good. I will likely start using Headhunter on a lot more of my bros in general, though. And I think you should do that as well. So even if you don't want to use the Flail, start using Headhunter. Thank you very much for your time. I found this to be an incredibly rewarding video. In fact, I lost multiple saves by failing to turn off Dovcore Rising, as I have for this campaign. So I've lost about 2 campaigns to make this video. So please, show me some kindness. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.